So, I mean, I don't understand the logic of decolonization.
4 reasons people think Hobson's pledge is racist.
Is Hobson's pledge a racist organisation? It's an accusation that's levied against them frequently, and one that leader Don Brash is constantly claiming is untrue. For example, Kirsty Johnson's 2017 Herald article about New Zealand's alt-right had this paragraph at the end. Any implication that group has links or similarities with neo-Nazi groups was unintended and false. The group's Don Brash has asked us to point out that he opposes racism of any kind. In an interview with Waitea News, he said that the group has never had a position on immigration and simply wants all citizens to have equal political rights, whether they be Maori, European, Asian or whatever. So to accuse them of racism is literally a lie. Now, I'm not going to accuse Hobson's pledge of being racist, but I've been following the group on Facebook for some time, as well as paying attention to other things that Brash has said and done, and I have a few ideas as to why other people might make that accusation.
Number 1. They promote Pākehā assimilation.
When colonizers came, we took over their culture. Thank heavens for that.
For most of New Zealand's history, this country had a de facto policy of what I'm going to call Pākehā assimilation. Te Ara Encyclopedia describes New Zealand in the period between 1840 and the Māori Renaissance that began in the 1970s as unofficially monocultural. It was the social movements of the 1970s that led to the establishment of the Waitangi Tribunal and processes to redress historic land confiscations, as well as policies we've seen implemented in the 4 decades since that have done things like ensure the protection of Māori language and culture and make sure that Māori are consulted on laws that affect them. Hobson's pledge has called for the disestablishment of the Waitangi Tribunal, while simultaneously arguing that those other things I mentioned shouldn't exist either, because the word rangatiratanga doesn't translate as sovereignty. Now that's not the case, but even if it was, those other things I mentioned are actually from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which New Zealand became a signatory to in 2010, meaning they would be required even if there was no treaty.
Another statement that I would often make. Well, we're all one now in any case. But think about this. If we're all one, then let's all be Māori. We're in New Zealand. We're all one. Let's all be Māori. Because whose view of one are we? Yes, we're one citizen. But to suggest that we're one is to deny Māori the right to identify and be Māori. Who gave me that right?
The name Hobson's pledge comes from William Hobson, who by the end of 1840 would become the first governor of New Zealand, and the words that he spoke after the treaty were signed.
I iwi tahi te tau.
We are one people. But which people are we? Throughout the colonial era, it became clear that the one people New Zealanders were meant to become was Pākehā. Perhaps the best known example of Pākehā assimilation is the punishment Māori received for speaking Te Reo Māori in school throughout most of the 20th century.
Number 2. Don Brash sometimes sounds a bit like Kevin B. MacDonald.
Jews made up only 0.2% of the world population, and only 2% of the American population. They'd won 22% of all Nobel Prizes, 38% of the Oscars for Best Director, and 67% of the John Clark Bates medals for economists under the age of 40. No fewer than 23% of the CEOs of the Forbes 400 corporations are Jewish, as are the founders or co-founders of most of the world's big technology companies such as Facebook, Google, Intel, and Oracle. Now, I don't know why that is the case, and I hasten to add I'm not Jewish myself, but it's impossible to ignore the possibility that Jewish culture is in some respects more advanced or superior to other cultures.
When Brash says that we can't ignore the possibility that Jewish culture may in some respects be more advanced or superior to other cultures, he's likely, and I can't say this for certain, saying that inequality between ethnic groups is down to some cultures just being better than others. The fact that he specifically uses Jewish culture for his example makes him sound a bit like a man named Kevin B. MacDonald. Kevin B. MacDonald is an evolutionary psychologist who has written several books about Jewish culture. In these books he claims that Jewish people have a series of marked genetic traits, including above average verbal intelligence and a tendency towards collectivism, which they've used to become a powerful group in society. Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Centre has claimed that MacDonald is publishing anti-Semitism under the guise of scholarly work.
At base, it says that Jews are out to get us through their agenda. His work is bandied about by just about every neo-Nazi group in America.
MacDonald doesn't attempt to distance himself from those groups, by the way. The photo of him I showed before is from when he spoke at an event hosted by the white nationalist American Freedom Party. I'll remind you of that statement in the Herald, that any similarity between Hobson's pledge and neo-Nazi groups is unintended and false, and Brash opposes racism of any kind. I'll take Brash at his word that he opposes racism, but I can understand why some people might not believe him when he gives speeches that sound a bit like a man the SPLC has described as the neo-Nazi movement's favourite academic. Number 3. Don Brash raised funds to defend the free speech of the alt-right. In addition to being the leader of Hobson's pledge, Don Brash is also a founding member of the Free Speech Coalition, a group that, according to their website, is made up of prominent New Zealanders from across the political spectrum, meaning it has several Conservatives and also Chris Trotter. The Free Speech Coalition was formed after Auckland City Council denied use of a public venue to two travelling racist grifters, Stephen Molyneux, who promotes discredited pseudoscience about race and intelligence, and Lauren Southern, who promotes the Great Replacement conspiracy theory that the Christchurch shooter named his manifesto after. The Free Speech Coalition raised $50,000 for a legal challenge against Auckland Council on their behalf, which they lost! Now here's the thing. Free speech is a liberal principle that the majority of people in this country, myself included, think is a very good thing. But the principle of free speech doesn't dictate that you have to raise money in support of racist charlatans or fight their legal battles for them. Don Brash doesn't seem that committed to the principle anyway, given that in the past he's sought a court injunction in order to prevent a book being published.
Number 4. They seem to have a lot of far-right friends.
For this part, I'm going to show a few screenshots from the Hobson's Pledge Facebook page. Here's a meme that they shared from Right Minds. Right Minds is the website of Dewey de Boer, who has previously stated that his movement has goals which overlap with parts of the Christchurch Shooters Manifesto. That said, de Boer is someone I consider a relative moderate when it comes to the far right. And this was a meme featuring Brash, which in and of itself isn't anything too extreme. But let's look at some more. Here they are sharing a post from John Ansell calling a former New Zealand Prime Minister a cultural Marxist. Ansell featured in my last video series, Stories New Zealand's Far Right is Telling, for spreading false flag conspiracy theories about the Christchurch shooting and also being a terrible poet. Now, while Ansell has been sliding towards the alt-right for a while, he only really fell off the deep end recently, and he does have a long-standing relationship with Don Brash, dating back to the time he worked for the National Party and later the ACT Party under Brash's leadership. So make of this one what you will. Here's them sharing a post from the One New Zealand Party, specifically the page of the One New Zealand Party that later changed its name to Voice of the People because there was a split in the One New Zealand Party and the splinter group kept the name, and it was this whole thing that I'm not going to go into. Here they are sharing a post from the One Nation NZ page. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know that page. It's since been removed for promoting graphic violence and false news. Most specifically, for sharing the footage of the Christchurch shooting live stream and claiming that the victims are actors. Now remember, for Hobson's pledge to share from this page, it means that a page administrator has either gone to the page or seen content from the page show up in their newsfeed and then click share. This isn't just a case of two pages that are sharing the same link. Here's a couple more screenshots I thought were notable enough to put in this video. Here's Hobson's pledge sharing an article with the headline, "White Genocide is Real and It's Coming to New Zealand." And here they are sharing a meme claiming that Zimbabwe was better off under white minority rule. So what would I say in conclusion? Are Hobson's pleas a racist group? Well, if you would ask for my opinion, I would tell you that Hobson's pleas are Tiara Encyclopedia notes that, hang on. No.
In 1840, Maori had no written language, had not invented the wheel.
Up until about 19... no.
They were still practicing cannibalism and slavery.
Here's them sharing a meme from... And this was a meme featuring Brash, so... no. That photo of him I showed before is from when he spoke at the white nationalist group... no. There's another bit lead after that. Okay. Right. I've done another couple of takes. I'll come a bit closer as well, just coming my arm off. Now here's the thing.
We'll do one more. Except this time I'm gonna make it a
closure?
You know, it's that kind of like
That might be a good way to do it, actually.
You know, at the end of some documentaries where they do that, like, you know, that little bit where the documentary maker is on camera doing that, you know.